What would you do if you were forced into a marriage with a man you barely knew, only to discover he's been hiding a sacrifice that could change everything? Stick around to hear how it all unfolds. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story that just might stay with you long after it ends. I used to believe life would give me time to choose, time to fall in love, time to grow into the woman my mother always told me I could be. But standing here, in this silent mansion that smells of cedar and cold air, I know now. Time has never been on my side. The reflection staring back at me in the tall mirror is almost unrecognizable. The ivory gown clings to my body like it belongs to someone else. It's too elegant for a girl like me, too perfect for someone who spent most of her life folding laundry in a tiny Brooklyn apartment while Mama hummed, "You Are My Sunshine" in the kitchen. I clutch my hands together, fingers trembling. The tiny, silver ring on my right hand, the one Mama gave me on my 17th birthday, presses against my skin. It's worn thin, almost losing its shape, but I hold on to it like it's the last piece of myself I have left. "Miss Carter, it's time." The housekeeper's voice floats in from the hallway, muffled but firm. I can't move. I don't want to. I glance at the door. For a brief, foolish moment, I consider running. But where would I go? Back to Mama, lying in that hospital bed, unaware that I've agreed to marry a man I barely know, all to save her life, all to protect my family from ruin. I swallow the rising panic and smooth my hands down the front of my dress. One step, then another. I walk out into the dimly lit hallway, my breath hitching with every move. The ceremony is being held in the Blackwood Estates private chapel. No music, no guests, only him. Darius Blackwood stands at the altar like a statue carved from stone, tall, broad-shouldered, and terrifyingly still. His black suit fits him like armor. His dark eyes, so sharp they feel like they could cut right through me, never leave my face as I make my way down the narrow aisle. The chandelier above us glows faintly, casting long shadows on the marble floor. I've never felt smaller in my life. I try to focus on breathing, but the silence presses on my chest like a weight I can't shake. When I reach him, I don't dare meet his gaze. My throat is dry. My heart pounds so loud I can barely hear the officiant's voice. "We are gathered here today." The words blur into background noise. Then comes the question, the moment my life officially ceases to belong to me. "Do you, Amelia?" "Rose Carter, take this man?" My lips part, but no sound comes out. I feel Darius shift beside me. Slowly, he leans in, so close I can feel his breath brush against my ear. "Say yes," he murmurs, his voice like gravel. "Or your family pays the price." I close my eyes, fighting the sting in my throat. This isn't love. This isn't a choice. This is survival. I do, I whisper, barely audible. The officiant nods, moving to Darius. He doesn't hesitate. His voice is steady, cold. I do. There is no kiss, no applause, no moment of joy. Only Darius offering me his arm like a transaction, being sealed. I place my hand on his sleeve, my skin prickling under his touch. We turn toward the hallway where a quiet life of obligations and pretense awaits. As we walk back toward the house, I clutch the folds of my dress tighter, trying to keep myself from unraveling. But something slips loose. A tiny tear in the satin lining near my waist catches my fingers. I glance down, frowning, and my breath catches when I spot the corner of something tucked inside. A folded piece of paper. Heart hammering. I pull it free and hide it in the folds of my palm as we continue walking. Hours later, when I'm finally alone in the guest room that feels nothing like home, I unfold the letter with trembling fingers. I know Mama's handwriting instantly. Delicate, slanted, faded at the edges like the voice I hear in my head every night. Forgive me, Amelia. One day, you will know what he did. Darius Blackwood. He ruined us. I stare at the words, my breath catching in my throat. The paper trembles in my hand as the weight of the unknown crashes down on me. What did he do? Why would Mama hide this? And why did she let me marry him? I pressed the letter to my chest, curling up on the edge of the cold, empty bed. The walls seem to close in on me as a single crushing thought takes hold. I have just married the man who destroyed my family. And tomorrow, I will wake up in a life I never chose. I don't know how long I sit there, staring at that letter as if it might dissolve into nothing. Part of me wishes it would. But Mama's handwriting doesn't lie. I tuck the letter under my pillow before the housekeeper knocks again. She's polite. Too polite. She avoids my eyes as she tells me Darius has left for the city and won't be back until late tomorrow. And just like that, I'm alone again. The mansion feels even colder in the daylight. I wander the endless halls, my bare feet sinking into soft rugs that smell like dust and old money. I pass rooms filled with books I'll never read, art I'll never understand. Everything here is curated, flawless, polished, a place built to impress, not to live in. I find myself drawn to the back of the house, toward the kitchen. It's nothing like Mama's. No peeling wallpaper, no creaky floorboards. Everything here shines. Chrome, glass, marble. Cold, empty. But there, tucked in the corner near the window, I spot something out of place. An old cast-iron kettle. It's small, worn. Doesn't belong here at all. And somehow it makes my throat ache. I reach for it, fingers tracing the chipped paint. I don't know why I do it, but I fill it with water, set it on the stove. I find a box of tea bags in the cabinet, Earl Grey, Mama's favorite, and I wait. When the kettle whistles, I close my eyes. For one breathless second, I could almost believe I'm back home. Back in that tiny Brooklyn kitchen. Back when Mama's voice filled the air with soft songs and love felt safe and simple. I sip the tea slowly, sitting by the window, watching the city skyline in the distance. I wonder what Mama would say if she saw me now. Would she tell me to run? Or would she tell me to stay and fight for something I don't yet understand? I spend the rest of the day avoiding mirrors, avoiding the bed that feels too big, avoiding the letter hidden beneath my pillow. I tell myself I'm not going to cry again, and somehow I don't. It's well past midnight when I hear the front door open. I freeze in the hallway, breath catching in my throat. He's back. Darius doesn't notice me at first. He's speaking quietly on the phone as he steps inside, his deep voice filling the empty space like it owns every inch of it. I said no press, no announcements. Yes, I know what I signed. Keep it quiet. That's an order. He hangs up and pulls off his coat, loosening his tie. His jaw clenches when he finally sees me standing there, barefoot in my robe. We stare, at each other for a moment that feels like hours. Why are you awake? His voice is low, unreadable. I don't know what to say. I don't even know why I waited. I couldn't sleep. I whisper, clutching the robe tighter around me. He nods, almost like he doesn't believe me. He runs a hand through his hair, looking tired. Not cold, not cruel, just exhausted. You don't have to wait up for me, Amelia, he says, softer this time. This isn't that kind of marriage. I don't know what makes me say it, but the words fall from my lips before I can stop them. Did you ruin us? His body stiffens. The air between us shifts. He takes one slow step toward me, then another, until he's standing close enough for me to feel the heat radiating off his skin. "Who told you that?" he asks, voice dangerously low. I swallow hard. "My mother, she wrote it. In a letter." He closes his eyes for half a second, like the weight of the world just landed on his shoulders. "Go to bed, Amelia," he murmurs. "Tell me the truth," I whisper. But he doesn't. He turns and walks away, leaving me standing there with nothing but the silence he always seems to leave behind. I don't sleep. Again. I wake before dawn, needing air, needing space, needing something, anything, to make sense. I slip outside, clutching my robe around me, and sit on the frozen steps of the garden. Terrace. That's when I see them. 2 envelopes neatly stacked on the side table near the door. I glance around, but no one is there. I pick them up, heart pounding. The first is addressed to me. The second, to the hospital billing office. My hands shake as I open the first. "Your mother's treatment has been paid in full. Do not ask how. Consider it done." No signature, no explanation. But I know. Darius Blackwood, the man who refuses to even share a room with me, has been paying for my mother's care all along. I stare out into the icy garden, clutching the letter to my chest. I don't know who he really is. I don't know why he's doing this. But for the first time since I said I do, I'm not sure he's the villain I've made him out to be. And that scares me more than anything. I don't tell him I found the letter. I don't even thank him. I can't. Because for every quiet kindness he shows, there's still that voice in the back of my mind. Mama's words like a whisper I can't shake. He ruined us. I spend the next 2 days in silence, moving through the mansion like a guest in someone else's life. Darius comes and goes. He never asks where I've been or what I'm thinking. He doesn't touch me. He doesn't look at me longer than he has to, and maybe that should hurt less than it does. On the 3rd morning, I wake before sunrise, pulled from sleep by something I can't explain. Restlessness, fear, longing. I don't know. I wrap myself in my coat and make my way to the kitchen, only to stop in the hallway when I hear a familiar voice. "Mama." She's on the phone, her voice soft but sharp, the way it always was when she tried to hide her worry. No, I didn't tell her everything. A pause. She's better off not knowing. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, I know what Darius did, but I also know why. I lean against the wall, heart pounding. She's talking to someone who knows, someone who might hold the key to all of this. I step closer, careful not to make a sound. "She still wears that ring, you know," Mama continues, her voice breaking a little. "The one her father gave me before he ruined himself trying to protect us." I press a hand to my mouth, feeling the truth curling in my chest like a storm waiting to break. Later that day, I call Mama. I don't mention the phone call. I just ask her to tell me everything. "Your father," she begins, her voice trembling. "He wasn't the man you thought he was, Amelia." I sink onto the floor of my room, clutching the phone like a lifeline. He was proud, too proud. He made a deal with Darius's father years ago, borrowed money to start that little business of his. But when the business failed, he forged documents to frame Darius's father, to make it look like Blackwood Estates was the one in debt. I close my eyes, my heart sinking. Darius found out. He had every right to expose us, to ruin your father's name. But he didn't. "Why?" I whisper. Mama sighs, long and heavy, like she's been carrying this weight for years. "Because he loved you." The words hit me like a blow to the chest. He was just a boy back then. You were only 12. He used to come by the shop, remember? Buying flowers for his mother. He saw you, Amelia. He saw you before all of this went wrong. My throat tightens. I remember. Barely. A tall boy in a school uniform. Quiet. Polite. Always choosing yellow daisies. He kept quiet to protect you. But when your father died, the debt didn't disappear. Darius paid it off quietly. And when your mother got sick... She stops, her breath catching. He offered marriage. Not for love. Not at first. But to protect you. To protect all of us. I don't know how long I sit there after the call ends. Minutes. Hours. The letter Mama hid. The words she never said. The truth I was too blind to see. I've hated him for so long. I've blamed him for everything. But all along, he's been carrying the weight I never dared to face. That night, I find myself standing outside his study door. My hand hovers over the doorknob. I could walk away. I could lock myself back in that cold, empty bed and pretend none of this matters. But it does. It matters more than anything. I push the door open slowly. Darius looks up from his desk, surprised to see me there. He doesn't speak. He just waits. I step inside, closing the door behind me. I walk toward him, my hands shaking. "You knew my father lied," I whisper. "You knew, and you still protected us." He leans back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "What do you want me to say, Amelia?" "The truth," I breathe. "Please." For the first time, I see something flicker in his eyes. Not cold, not distance, but pain. "I did it for you," he says. Barely more than a whisper. "I've been doing this for you since the day I watched your father fall apart and knew you would be the one to pay for it." My throat burns. Tears blur my vision. I shake my head, unable to breathe. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have hated me anyway," he says, voice rough. "And maybe I deserved it." I move closer, not sure if I'm walking or falling. I reach out, my fingers brushing his hand. It's the first time I've touched him without fear. The first time I've wanted to. "I don't hate you," I whisper. I don't know how to stop feeling like I should." He turns his hand, curling his fingers around mine. Tight, like he's afraid I'll disappear. "Let me show you how," he murmurs. And for the first time, I think I might let him try. I wish I could tell you that everything changed after that night in his study. That I woke up the next morning knowing exactly how to forgive him, how to trust him, how to love him. But life doesn't work like that. Not real life. What I felt was messier. Something between understanding and fear, between longing and resentment. Like standing in the doorway of a warm room, not knowing if I was allowed to step inside. I spent the next week watching Darius the way you watch the sky before a storm, bracing for something you can't predict. But nothing ever came. He didn't push me to talk. He didn't pull me closer. He just let me be. And in that silence, something inside me started to shift. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because the air smelled like snow again, even though the ground had been dry for days. I had gone to the kitchen, craving the quiet comfort of that old kettle, when I overheard 2 members of Darius's staff whispering in the hallway. "He's calling it off," one of them murmured. "The entire project, Blackwood Heights, millions down the drain." "You're kidding," the other replied, low and sharp. "He's been planning that development for 3 years. Said something about the Carter family shop being in the way, that little block in Brooklyn. Guess he's letting it go." I pressed my back to the wall, my breath catching. Blackwood Heights. Even I had heard of it. A massive high-rise complex planned right in the middle of the old neighborhood where I grew up, where Mama still lived. The block where our tiny flower shop used to stand before it closed down years ago. And now, he was letting it go? For me. I couldn't stop thinking about it all night. It wrapped itself around me tighter than any blanket ever could. He had spent years building that project, and with a single decision, he had chosen to walk away. No one knew. No one would ever praise him for it. There would be no headlines, no applause, only loss and silence. The next evening, I found him sitting in the library, staring out the window at the city lights. I stood in the doorway, watching him for what felt like forever. Something about the way his shoulders slumped, the way his hands hung, heavy in his lap. It cracked something open in me I didn't even know I had left. I walked in quietly and sat down across from him. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Then, without thinking, I stood, walked to the small tea tray in the corner and poured 2 cups. I brought one to him, setting it on the table between us. "It's cold tonight," I whispered. He didn't look at me right away. He just reached for the cup, his fingers brushing mine. And for the first time since we married, he smiled. Not a full smile. Not even close, but a soft, fleeting curve of his lips, like he didn't remember how to do it properly. "I heard what you did," I said softly. "About the project." His smile faded. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," I whispered. He leaned back, running a hand over his face like the weight of it all was too much. "I built that deal to prove I could survive what your father did to me," he confessed, voice low. "I told myself that if I could build something bigger, stronger, I'd finally feel like I'd won. But all I ever felt was—" He stopped, searching for words that never seemed to come. "I'm tired of building walls I don't even want to live behind," he finally whispered. I sat down beside him, curling my hands around my teacup for warmth. Neither of us spoke for a while. The city stretched out beyond the window, glittering and endless. I thought about my mother's voice, about the nights she used to sit with me in that old kitchen, wrapping her hands around a chipped mug the way I was doing now. I used to think love had to be loud to be real, I whispered, almost to myself. That it had to look like fairy tales, big gestures, big words. He turned toward me, watching me carefully. "But Mama used to say, real love is quiet. It's in the things no one else sees." I set my tea down, folding my hands in my lap. "You gave up everything for people who might never know. And you did it anyway." I looked up, meeting his eyes fully, for the first time in days. "That feels a lot like love to me." His breath caught. And for a heartbeat, I thought he might say something. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his forehead in his hands, like the weight of my words was too much to carry. "You deserve more than this, Amelia," he whispered. "More than me." I reached out before I could stop myself, placing my hand over his. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "Maybe," I whispered, "but for the first time, I don't want to run anymore." He lifted his head slowly, his eyes searching mine, raw and unguarded. "Why?" he breathed. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. "Because I think I'm starting to see the man you've been hiding all along." Neither of us moved after that. We just sat there, side by side, sharing the kind of silence that didn't feel empty anymore. The kind of silence that felt safe, real, ours. We never spoke of that night again. But somehow, everything felt different after. I stopped feeling like a stranger in this house. Stopped tiptoeing through the halls like I was trespassing in someone else's life. I even started leaving my door open at night, just a crack, but still open. Darius never crossed the threshold, but I knew he noticed, and strangely, that felt like enough. For now. The days blurred together. Small things started to shift in ways only I could see. Fresh flowers on the table every morning, a new box of Mama's favorite tea in the cabinet, a soft knock on my door each night, just before he turned in. Not words, not grand gestures, just presence. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we were finding our way towards something real. Until she came. It was late, later than usual. I had just finished folding the last of the clean sheets when I heard the knock. Not at my door. At the front of the house. I paused at the top of the stairs, clutching the edge of the banister, listening. Darius answered, his voice low and tense. "You shouldn't be here," a woman's voice replied, light and sharp, laced with the kind of confidence I'd never learned how to fake. "Oh, I think I should." I crept down the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. I stopped when I reached the bottom, peeking around the corner just far enough to see her. Tall, striking, dressed in black like she owned the night itself. "How sweet," she purred, stepping closer to him. "You really married the little Carter girl after all." I held my breath. "What do you want, Elise?" Darius bit out, jaw clenched. She laughed softly, trailing a finger along the edge of his jacket. "Just here to offer my congratulations," she murmured, her eyes flashing. "After all, it's not every day a man finally takes revenge on the family that ruined him." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Her words hit me like ice water down my spine. No, not again. Not after everything we'd started to build. "Get out," Darius growled, his voice darker than I'd ever heard it. "Now." Elise leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper I almost didn't hear. "She doesn't know, does she?" A cruel smile curved her lips. "Poor little thing. She actually thinks you married her to save her." I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. "I said get out," Darius snapped, grabbing her arm. Elise yanked free, laughing coldly. "Be careful, Darius. You're starting to look like you actually care." She turned on her heel, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she walked toward the door. And that's when she saw me. She stopped, tilting her head slightly, her smile turning almost pitying. She whispered. "There you are, little bird." Darius turned sharply, his eyes finding mine. "Amelia." But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I turned and ran, the sound of my own heartbeat drowning everything else out. I don't remember getting back to my room. I just remember standing there, shaking, staring at the silver ring on my finger like it was burning my skin. Was it all a lie? Had he been playing me from the start? Some twisted way to even the score? The tears came fast and hard, ripping through me like a storm I couldn't stop. I grabbed the letter Mama had written, the one that started all of this, and shoved it into my pocket. I couldn't stay here. Not another second. I pulled on my coat with trembling hands, grabbed my boots, and slipped out the back door without looking back. The cold hit me like a slap, stealing the breath from my lungs. I didn't care. I just kept walking. Through the garden, down the long drive, into the dark streets beyond. I don't know how long I walked. The snow started to fall again, soft and steady, covering the city like a hush no one dared break. By the time I reached Brooklyn, my fingers were numb, my boots soaked through, my breath visible in the freezing air. But I didn't stop. I climbed, the worn steps to Mama's apartment, my throat tight, my vision blurry. I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened before I could. Mama stood there, wrapped in her old shawl, looking at me like she'd been waiting all night. "Come inside, baby," she whispered, holding the door open wider. I collapsed into her arms, breaking apart all over again, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew. I wasn't running toward safety. I was running away from the only thing I might have ever wanted, and I didn't know if I'd ever be brave enough to go back. I slept in my childhood bed that night, curled under the old patchwork quilt Mama had sewn when I was 12. The mattress sagged in the middle like it always had. The walls smelled like chamomile and wood polish, and for the first time in weeks, I should have felt safe. But I didn't. Not really, because I knew I had left something unfinished back at the mansion, or maybe someone. Mama didn't ask questions the next morning. She just made tea and sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around her favorite chipped mug, the one with the fading sunflower painted on the side. "He came here once, you know," she said quietly, after a long silence. I looked up, startled. "When?" "2 years ago," she whispered, her eyes distant, like she was pulling the memory from somewhere she'd hidden it. "After your father died." I leaned back, clutching the edge of the table. He offered to pay off the debts, to take care of me, of you. My throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd never say yes," she said softly. "I knew you'd hate him for it. And I wasn't ready to tell you the truth about your father." She paused, turning the mug in her hands. "I told him to stay away, to let you live your life without this hanging over you." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "But he never really left, did he?" I pushed back from the table, standing too fast, my chair scraping against the floor. "He used me, Mama," I choked out. "I heard it with my own ears. That woman," she said, "I was just part of his revenge." Mama stood slowly, crossing the small kitchen to place her hands on my face. "And you believed her?" I flinched. I don't know what to believe anymore." She held my face tighter, forcing me to look into her. Tired, knowing eyes. "Then you ask him. You face him. You don't run from the truth, Amelia. Not if you ever want to live with yourself." Her words hit harder than I expected. Because deep down, I knew she was right. I had spent my whole life running. From loss. From fear. From anything that felt bigger than I could hold. And maybe it was. Time to stop. That night, after Mama went to bed, I stood by the window, staring out at the street below. The snow had started again, heavier this time. Soft flakes drifted past the streetlight, swirling like little ghosts in the dark. I wrapped my arms around myself, wondering if Darius even noticed I was gone. Wondering if he even cared. I almost missed it. The shadow standing on the sidewalk, across the street. Tall, still, unmoving. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed my hand to the glass, leaning closer. It was him. I bolted for the door, throwing on my coat and rushing down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might collapse before I reached him. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, the snow crunched softly beneath my boots. He didn't. "Move." "What are you doing here?" I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. He turned slowly, the snow catching in his dark hair, melting on the sharp edges of his jaw. "Waiting," he rasped. I swallowed hard, my breath fogging in the freezing air. "For what?" His eyes locked on mine, so raw and unguarded it made my knees shake. "For you to stop running." I took a shaky step forward. "Why?" He exhaled slowly, his breath swirling between us like a fragile thread. "Because I can't live without you, Amelia." The words hit me like a fist to the chest, so simple, so unpolished, so painfully real. "You heard Elise," I whispered, my voice trembling. She said, "You married me to take revenge on my family." His jaw clenched, snowflakes sticking to his lashes. "I did," he admitted, his voice breaking. At first I told myself that's what this was, that I could finally settle the score. He took a step closer, snow crunching softly beneath his shoes. "But I was wrong. I've been wrong since the day I saw you in that dress, standing in front of me like you were already breaking." I swallowed hard, my vision blurring with tears. "I don't know how to fix this," I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "I don't want to fix it, Amelia. I just want to start over. If you'll let me." I stood there, shaking, torn between the part of me that still wanted to run and the part of me that had already run too far. I thought of Mama's voice, of the way Darius had waited in silence, not in anger, not in power, but in surrender. And I knew. I took another step, closing the distance between us. I reached for his hand, slowly, like it might break if I wasn't careful. He let out a breath I didn't realize he'd been holding, curling his fingers around mine, holding on like he never wanted to let go. "Come inside," I whispered. "Only if you ask me to stay," he breathed. I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead to his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath my palms. "Stay." He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close, burying his face in my hair like he couldn't quite believe I was real. And there, under the falling snow, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. We didn't say much on the walk back to the apartment. We didn't have to. His hand stayed wrapped around mine the entire way, not tight, not desperate, just steady, like he finally understood I wouldn't run again, and maybe I understood it too. Mama was waiting by the door when we stepped inside. Her expression softened the second she saw him. No accusations, no questions, just quiet, knowing acceptance. "You'll stay for tea?" she asked him gently, like it was the simplest thing in the world. He nodded, clearing his throat like it was the first breath he'd taken all night. We sat at the old kitchen table, the three of us, like we had done it 100 times before, even though it had never happened. Not like this. Mama moved around the kitchen slowly, filling the kettle, pulling down the chipped mugs. The same ones I had grown up watching her use when the world felt too big for us to hold. Amelia used to sit right there, she said softly, nodding toward the chair I was in, feet swinging because they couldn't reach the floor. I let out a breathless laugh, pressing my hand to my chest. "She used to hum that silly song over and over," Mama continued. "What was it, baby?" I smiled through the lump in my throat. "You are my sunshine," I whispered. Darius leaned back in his chair, his hands resting on the table, open and empty. "I remember," he said quietly. "You were always singing it when I came by the shop." Mama smiled sadly, setting the mugs down in front of us. She never really stopped. We drank our tea in silence, the steam curling between us like something fragile and unfinished. When Mama stood to head toward her room, she paused beside Darius, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, you know," she said softly. Hin looked up at her, startled. "Waiting for her," she added, letting her choose. He swallowed hard, nodding like the words weighed more than he knew how to carry. Mama turned to me, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Take care of each other," she whispered, and just like that, she was gone, leaving us alone again. I turned back to him slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. "Why did you wait so long to come after me?" I whispered. His jaw tightened. "I didn't Want to pull you back into something you weren't ready to choose? I swallowed the lump in my throat. I thought you'd given up. He shook his head slowly. I almost did, he whispered. But every time I tried to let go, all I could think about was how you looked that night in my study when you told me you didn't want to run anymore. He reached for my hand, curling his fingers gently around mine. I wanted to believe you meant it, that you might choose me one day. Not because you had to, not because of a debt, but because you wanted to. The air between us felt too full, too heavy with all the things we hadn't said. I leaned in slowly, resting my head against his shoulder. I don't know what this is yet, I whispered. I don't know how to be. Married to someone I barely know. He let out a shaky breath. Then let's start over, he murmured. I sat up, blinking in surprise. What? He turned toward me, his eyes soft in a way I hadn't seen before. No more deals, no more debts, no more pretending. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out something small and familiar. My breath caught in my throat when I saw it. The silver ring, the one Mama had given me, the one I had taken off the night I ran. May I? He whispered, holding it between his fingers. I nodded slowly, my eyes blurring with tears. He took my hand carefully, sliding the ring back onto my finger with a tenderness that nearly undid me. Amelia Rose Carter, he whispered, his voice shaking. Will you let me be yours? Not for obligation, but for real? I pressed my forehead to his, closing my eyes as the tears slipped down my cheeks. Yes, I breathed. I'm already yours. We stayed like that for a long time. No promises, no expectations. Just two people finding their way back to something neither of us thought we'd ever deserve. And in that tiny kitchen, surrounded by chipped mugs and the ghosts of who we used to be, I realized something I had never dared to believe before. Maybe love doesn't have to come crashing in like a storm. Maybe it grows quietly, like steam rising from a cup of tea. Soft, steady, real. We didn't go back to the mansion the next day. We stayed in Brooklyn, in that tiny apartment with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind. Darius didn't seem to mind. He folded blankets, washed dishes, carried groceries up the stairs like it was all he'd ever wanted to do. And every night, when the city lights flickered through the thin curtains, he held my hand until we fell asleep. We didn't speak of the wedding. We didn't speak of Elise. We didn't speak of revenge or debt or all the sharp edges that used to cut between us. We just lived. Quietly, simply, together. Mama's health grew stronger with every passing day. The doctors said it was a miracle. But I knew better. It was him. Every treatment, every bill paid, every sacrifice made without expecting anything in return. He never asked for credit, never asked for thanks, but I gave them to him anyway. Not with words, not with grand gestures, but with presence, with trust, with the quiet decision to stay. One morning, I woke to find him standing by the window, holding a single sheet of paper. Rubbed my eyes, sitting up slowly. What is it? I asked, my voice thick with sleep. He turned toward me, his jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. It's the annulment papers, he whispered. My heart stuttered. What? He crossed the room slowly, sitting on the edge of the bed. I had them drawn up weeks ago, before you left, before I knew if you'd ever come back. He set the paper between us, pressing his hand over mine. You deserve a choice, Amelia, a real one this time. I stared down at the paper, my heart pounding. You still want to let me go? I whispered. He swallowed hard. I want you to stay because you choose to, not because you're trapped by something you never wanted. My vision blurred with tears. I already chose you, I whispered. I just didn't know how to say it until now. I pushed the paper off the bed, leaning in until our foreheads touched. There's nothing left to sign, I whispered. I'm not leaving. We packed up that afternoon, not to go back to the mansion, but to move into Mama's apartment together. He didn't flinch at the small space. He didn't complain about the sagging floor or the tiny kitchen, or the way the heater clanked in the middle of the night. He just unpacked the boxes and hung his coat on the hook by the door, like he had always belonged there. I reopened Mama's old flower shop on the corner. He bought the building without telling me, leaving the deed on the counter with a note in his handwriting. For your sunshine. I cried when I read it. He held me until I stopped. We never moved back to the Blackwood estate. Darius sold it a year later, said it never felt like home anyway. He started working less, spending more time helping me run the shop. He learned the names of every flower, every regular customer. He started wearing softer clothes, started smiling more, started looking less like the man who used to stand behind glass walls, and more like the man I had waited my whole life to find. Mama's laughter filled the apartment again. We ate dinner at the kitchen table every night, passing plates, sharing stories, and sometimes, when the city grew quiet and the snow started to fall, I'd hear Darius humming softly under his breath, the melody clumsy, off-key. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. I found him in the shop one evening, standing by the register with a small box in his hand. He turned when he heard me enter, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. I was going to wait, he whispered, but I don't think I can. He crossed the room slowly, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band. No debts, no contracts, no ghosts from the past, he murmured, taking my hand. Just me, asking you to choose me again. Every day, for the rest of our lives. I didn't cry this time. I didn't tremble. I just smiled, sliding the ring onto my finger, feeling its weight settle next to Mama's silver one. I already have, I whispered. I always will. We locked the door to the shop, turned off the lights, and walked home hand in hand through the quiet streets of Brooklyn. And as the first snow of the season began to fall, I knew we had finally found our forever. Not in a mansion, not in a name, not in the weight of the past, but here, in this life we had built together, one small, quiet choice at a time, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. Home. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt journeys like this one. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and I can't wait to share the next one with you.